You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss one case from each year, starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
We are to Thanksgiving week.
Woohoo!
And
Turkey Day.
See, I like ham. I don't do turkey.
Do what?
I don't like turkey. I like ham.
Well, I like ham, but it's Turkey Day.
No, I'm good.
Traditionally.
Well, let's not get into the traditions of Thanksgiving.
Well, I mean, it's Turkey Day. That's what you say.
We're
it's
going
a symbol.
We're going through all of our history from that time. It makes you really think about it.
Everybody does turkey stuff. Just it's Turkey Day.
Well, it's pig day for me.
Pig Day.
I like ham. That's my favorite thing to eat for sure. For
my sister doesn't eat ham. She's a weirdo. She doesn't like it.
Turkey's always just, I don't know. It depends on how you cook the turkey because the turkey can be too dry.
This is true.
And I don't like dry turkey.
This is true.
I don't want to feel like I'm.
Come to my mama's house. She cooks a turkey. It is not dry.
I mean, a lot of people make it where it's not dry, but then you have like that 2 years in a row of dry turkey, and you're kind of like,
yeah. Oh, but if you fry it,
fried turkey is good. I've had fried turkey several times, and it is very good. So since we are on the subject, because I know a lot of people, last year was a weird time for Thanksgiving. Last year, a lot of people did not get to visit their families for Thanksgiving. If you are like my boyfriend, he was not able to see his family at Thanksgiving or Christmas. So he is now going this year to go visit them. So for a lot of people there, especially if you live a good distance away from your family, a lot of people are seeing their families for the first time in 2 years. And we all know that can be... We'll go with a little stressful. Yeah, it can be, you got some people in your family that, we're just going to be honest here.
Sometimes you have to have Xanax before you go to your family gathering.
That is true. Sometimes you do have to, make sure that, you got to have a plan before you go in. And trust me.
You have to have your friend available on text.
You got to, well, not even just that. So we got a few different, I found an article.
Oh dear.
And we got a few different ways. Some of them are all right ideas. Some of them are fine. So let's just go through, a couple of them and then we'll give you our unsolicited advice on what to do for Thanksgiving. So the first idea that they have is take a pass on the cocktails.
What
not
cocktails?
A bad idea.
We don't have those at my family
not
Thanksgiving.
At yours.
Or my husband's family Thanksgiving.
So maybe have a glass of wine with dinner if that's something that your family takes part of. But maybe just limit yourself to 2 drinks. Maybe.
We don't have any at ours.
Sometimes you got to sneak some with you. To be able
have
to
you
deal
seen
with
those
that.
tacky bracelets?
Yes.
Nobody will know it's a flask.
Yeah,
okay. Are you kidding me?
This is when a wine bra comes in handy.
Forget the water bra.
Yeah, the wine bra.
Nobody will know.
The number one thing that I think a lot of people deal with is having to deflect conversations away from their family. And we all have had to do that. Why are you single? Why have you not found someone to settle down with yet?
When are you having kids?
That's literally the next one. How do you feel about the president? What about your job? Maybe here's a few different ways. Somebody asks you, well, why aren't you dating anyone? It's always a really good time if there is someone in your family, just in general, that you look up to. Say you're speaking to your aunt, right? And your aunt comes up to you.
Are they a cool aunt like me?
I don't know. I can't speak for everyone's family. So just say that you have a nosy aunt that's coming up to you.
Oh, they're not a cool aunt like me.
That is asking you, why are you still single? You know what? Said aunt, who likely is married happily or unhappily, that's neither here nor there. You just say, you know what? I just really haven't found someone like Uncle Blank.
Oh, nice. Put it right back on
Yep.
them. It's a
And
compliment.
exactly. And then they take it as a compliment and then they feel good about themselves. And then if you're lucky ish, depending on how you feel about it, that's when you go, tell me again how y'all met.
Unless you've heard it a billion times.
Or tell me, like come up with something that oh, how did Uncle so and so propose to you again? What happened? All that way they are telling a story that you don't really have to tune into that much. You can kind of zone out a little, but it also takes everything off of you.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about, anything like that. Somebody asks you, how do you feel about politics? How do you feel about the government? How do you feel about that's all? And that's always the number one conversation, period, that anybody needs to avoid at any holiday because regardless of where you live, what your political backgrounds are, it doesn't matter. You're never going to agree with the other person. You're not going to agree with every single thing that they say, ever. Even if it is your soulmate.
Yeah, I was going to say, my husband and I don't agree 100% on everything.
You are never going to agree 100% of the time. So don't try. This is not, look, like I said, some of y'all haven't seen your families in 2 years. This is not the holiday to convince Uncle Joe what your ideals are on the current state of the political environment.
Correct.
This is not the time. So if somebody does ask you that question and they go, well, how do you feel about so and so? I would just say, I've just got a lot of varied thoughts on it. And it's just not really the time to talk about it. Or just completely change the subject.
Yep.
You could just completely change the subject. And somebody goes, well, how do you feel about... And you just go, wait, did you bring the hash brown casserole? What did you put in it? Because I tried to make it before and I couldn't make it as well as you do. How did you do it? You always got to have a way to come back. You gotta put it back on the other person.
Or, I mean, I'm just saying, this year, I just me being me, I just say, you know what? I don't really like talking about politics. I really do try to avoid it just because it's such a way to get people so heated and so hateful to each other. I really just want to enjoy time with my family, and I really just don't want to talk about that. I would really rather talk about what you've been doing this past year. I've seen some pictures of your garden on Facebook, and I want to tell you I have loved da-da-da-da.
You got to be careful with that, though.
Because then they're going to fill you in.
Because then then you get the conversation of they're prying as to why you won't talk about it. They'll start to pry and they'll start to pull in. So you can't, you just say, it's a crazy world that we live in. So how about those Braves winning the World Series? You just gotta
unless they are a big baseball fanatic that are not a
make
Braves
sure
fan.
that but you just say, how about the Braves winning the World Series? It doesn't matter if you're a fan of them or not. Somebody's going to have an opinion if they follow baseball. So you just let them go.
That's true. It deflects. That's true.
And always, always, always the great, hear my sarcasm, question. No kids yet?
Oh my gosh.
This is Leah's favorite. Because, I mean, as y'all know, y'all have listened to the podcast long enough. Leah does not have children. And that is
20 years.
By choice. Leah doesn't want to have children. That's what she's decided. I have a daughter.
I love children. I love children. And I'm the best Aunt Leah in the world. I'm called Aunt Leah by children who
are not your children.
Blood related.
No. Not a part of your clan.
But they are part of my clan.
Well, technically. Not immediate. But... you always have people that ask you questions on why haven't you had kids yet?
And after the mental image of me kicking them in their teeth and being so satisfied, I just say, well, you know what? I'm so happy being Aunt Leah. And I love sleeping all night and sleeping late on the weekends and, being able to just pick up at a moment's notice and go wherever I want to, whenever I want to, because I can put the dogs outside and leave them and DHR doesn't get called.
See, but you got to be careful with that too.
Why?
Because then somebody's going to take offense. Because they can't drop everything and pick up and go travel when they want to. So
Sucks for you. You know what causes that.
I'm saying if you don't want, if
you are offended by me
gotta,
saying that, that's your problem.
you got to avoid conflict. You got to deflect.
Look, I'm sorry. Do you know how many times I've had that question asked of
I'm
me?
aware.
So I really, at this point in
I'm
my
aware.
life, I give no
Well, you just,
no cares.
somebody asks about it,
And when it's the same person that asks that every time you see them,
yeah.
it really gets more and more difficult to say it kindly.
And here's a really funny one that you can do. You could go, you know what? We're just still really enjoying the honeymoon phase of our marriage. And then you always have that relative like Leah's, and they go, you've been married 20 years. And you go, I know. And isn't it crazy that we're still in that phase together? And that's it. Because they can't say anything about that. They can't say, oh, well, you shouldn't be in that phase. How do you respond to that? You shouldn't be in that phase of your life anymore.
I'm going to try that.
You just say, we're still in the honeymoon phase. And just leave it at that. And then they continue asking you, and that's your answer. It's your standing answer, because eventually they'll realize I can't ask. Like I get the same answer every year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, always good. Just we're still in the honeymoon phase. That's it. It's short and simple. Just leave it. And then if you really want to get them, that's when you make them real uncomfortable. And you're like, do you see him in those jeans? Wouldn't you be in that phase too? I mean, and then they're like, that is my nephew. Right? I know. I mean,
you see him cram that deviled egg in his mouth.
You see how, look at him. I tell you, he lost those 3 pounds this year, and whoo, man, just can't wait. I mean,
I do love my husband, and he does have pretty legs.
Or you just do this one. You have this really good one. I just don't really think I want to share him.
Well, I don't.
Exactly. I just don't think I want to share him. Then somebody can say, well, that's kind of selfish. And then you go,
I'm the princess.
I am selfish. And then what do you say to that? Because
look, I readily admit that I am spoiled and I am treated like a princess or queen, whatever you want to call it. I readily admit that, and I'm okay with it. So there you go.
So a couple of other things that you can do that is always, this is the number one way to avoid conflict at any family gathering.
Hide in the bathroom.
No.
Oh. The basement.
No.
Oh.
It doesn't involve hiding, because you can't hide, because then people come and find you.
Oh.
Always place yourself near the well-behaved children. Always, because then you can help. You could be like, hey, do you want to color? Your uncle, who's about 3 beers deep, isn't going to come and try and talk to you about politics when you're sitting by the kids. He's not going to come and ask you when you're having kids, because you're sitting right there beside him. So he's just, you keep yourself near the kids, the well-behaved ones, not the crazy ones, not the ones that everybody's like, they're coming this year.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, I have to say, usually if there's a group of kids, I'm usually in the thick of them.
I mean, and that's always the best thing to do. My last tip.
Don't take any wooden nickels.
No. Last tip for making sure that you are getting the most for yourself out of your family Thanksgiving events. Always make sure, 1, you drove yourself there.
Boom, baby.
2, that you are not responsible for getting anyone home. Because you can always come. You know what? my friend invited me to her family's Thanksgiving. Oh, and it's starting in about 30 minutes, so I should probably go ahead and go because I don't want to be rude and be late.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. And then you just home straight to the bottle of wine or whatever you would like. And that's it. Just always, that's my number one tip for life, if you want to be honest. Never, 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 never put yourself where you cannot leave. And that is just coming from somebody with anxiety who I don't want to be trapped in a location.
Or a control freak or something like that.
I don't want to be trapped in one specific location. Always drive yourself and have an understanding. Say you bring a significant other with you. Have an understanding that when you look at your significant other and they get that look, it's time to wrap it up. Let's go. Because you know the look. You know the look from your significant other. And it is always a specific look. And you get it and you go, all right, well, let's go. And if all else fails, this is probably the family. Sometimes this is the family that you only see like once a year because it's your big extended family.
Mm-hmm.
You just sneak away. You just leave. You just ghost them.
Oh, no, you can't do that with my family.
Well, that's why you got to go to an event where you got a lot of people there and you just ghost them. You go, I'm just going out to the car for a second. Bye.
You can't do that.
Oh, tell me I can't do that. I'll do it in 2 seconds.
No.
If I am in an uncomfortable situation, you will not understand the lengths of which I will go to get out of it. Like I can't. You know, and hey, and if you got that one real relentless relative that always just wants to start an argument with you, just we always got that other one family member that always something's going on with them, and always somebody's talking about that one family member, but they're not talking about that one family member. So you have that annoying one that comes up and starts talking to you and you go, did you hear what happened with Aunt Janet? And let them go. Let them go. And you just sit there and it's crazy, right? And just let them go. I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes in those situations. You cannot, that's your Hail Mary. That is your Hail Mary at Thanksgiving. It's just, there's always that one relative that they're always doing something a little bit less than what some people would think. Say, it's usually like, did you hear that her son isn't doing too good in college? Let him go. And they'll just keep going. And then they'll start complaining about everything. It's great. I'm telling you. But always do those things. Make sure, always have an exit strategy.
Always have a plan.
Always have a plan. Plan A through Z is always what I like to do. I like to prepare for any and everything. So, to take us with you on your Thanksgiving week, whether you are traveling, whether you are not traveling, whether you are having Thanksgiving at home. I did that last year with my boyfriend. We just had Thanksgiving ourselves at home. It was quite nice. I enjoyed it. Regardless of what you're doing this Thanksgiving season, if it's with your chosen family, that too.
Hey, I have Friendsgiving every year with two of my best friends. Like the week before Thanksgiving, we have a lunch together, and that's great.
If you're getting together, look, Cracker Barrel's open. I'm just saying.
Boom.
So we're in 1826 to take you on your Thanksgiving travels or non-travels. Hey, traveling from the kitchen to the couch, that's a travel.
You got to walk.
You got to go somewhere. Or you don't. I don't care. So we are in the year of 1826.
Ooh.
I got in a rabbit hole.
Oh, dear. When do you not get in a rabbit hole?
Well, this episode and next episode, it was a spiral. So I started this episode and I told my boyfriend what the episode was about. And he goes, oh, no. And I said, I know. We're going to discuss the case of William Morgan and his disappearance.
Ooh.
Always an interesting one when it's a disappearance. So our sources for this week, we've got history.com, and then we have a website that was called jerrywalton.com. Got a lot of really good information from that website. So both of these, I can't give you the titles of the articles yet because it'll give away what we're discussing. So I'm going to leave you in suspense a bit longer. Our events in 1826, January 24th, Treaty of Washington between the United States government and the Creek National Council, in which they ceded much of their land in the state of Georgia, was signed. February 6th, James Fenimore Cooper, his novel, The Last of the Mohicans, was published. February 13th, the American Temperance Society was founded in Boston. This is a society that members had taken a pledge to abstain from drinking distilled beverages, though not including wine and beer. It was permitted that the medicinal use of alcohol was allowed as well. It contributed to the abolition of slavery, expanding women's rights, temperance, which is just consuming alcohol, and the basic improvement of society. Essentially, we can drink wine and beer and alcohol. We can drink liquor if the doctor tells us that we can. But other than that, no. April 1st, Sam Morey patented the internal combustion engine.
Ooh.
July 15th, the Pan American Congress of Panama concluded without U.S. delegates arriving. So just to kind of go into this, because it was just interesting, the Congress of Panama was organized by Simon Bolivar with the goal of bringing together the new republics of Latin America to develop a unified policy towards Spain, who they were trying to break away from. The reason the U.S. not making it is significant is because the U.S. was only invited due to the pressure by current President John Quincy Adams and Secretary of State Henry Clay. One of the two delegates sent died on the way to Panama, and once the remaining delegate arrived, the meeting was already over.
Oh,
Because of this,
he missed it.
they did it intentionally. Because of this, Great Britain, who was only supposed to be attending as observers, acquired many trade deals with several Latin American countries.
Funny how that happened.
But the Congress of Panama already they were not waiting on the U.S. in general. It wasn't.
Right.
They just went ahead and had it because they didn't really care. They didn't want them to be there in the first place. They
Right.
just kind of forced themselves in. So in August, the town of Crawford Notch, New Hampshire, suffered a landslide. Those killed included the Wiley family. Mount Wiley, which is located in Grafton County, New Hampshire, is named after them. September 3rd.
Like the whole family?
Yeah, the whole family died. Like
That's
in a landslide.
That's tragic.
September 3rd, the USS Vincennes, commanded by William Finch, left New York City and became the first warship to circumnavigate the globe. October 7th, the first train operated over the Granite Railway in Massachusetts. December 21st, American settlers in Mexican Texas attempted to cede from Mexico to establish the Republic of Fredonia, which survived for a little bit over a month, and it was called the Fredonian Rebellion.
Fredonia.
December 25th, the Eggnog Riot. We almost covered this, but I didn't.
Eggnog
The
Riot?
Eggnog Riot broke out at West Point Military Academy. It was caused by a drunken Christmas Day party in the North Barracks of the Academy.
Oh my.
2 days before the riot, large quantities of whiskey were smuggled in to make eggnog for the party.
Uh-oh.
It involved more than 1/3 of the cadets by the time it ended Christmas morning.
Oh my.
So for our undated events of this year, this was just an interesting one. We might go into it later on sometime for possibly a bonus episode.
Ooh.
I don't know. Sing Sing Prison first opened in 1826 on the Hudson River. For those who aren't aware, which Leah, I'm sure, is one of them, this is the place for the worst of the worst who commit the most unthinkable crimes.
That's not a place I want to go.
This is where they go.
Not a place for me.
I won't go, like I said, I won't go into much about it because we might cover it a bit later on. But just to give you an idea of the types of people sent here, Leo will not know who some of these are. She knows who one of them is for sure. I do know that. And that is David Berkowitz, the son of Sam.
Ew.
He was sent to Sing Sing. Albert Fish, not going to go into it. We might cover him later. We might not. It just depends on how brutal that gets. And Luis Buchhalter. He's the head of Murder Inc., which was a kind of like murder for hire company
Oh my
that was running through the
goodness.
U.S. It was crazy. We'll cover Murder Inc. for sure at some
How do
point.
you live with yourself?
So, our births in 1826, March 4th, Theodore Dehone Judah. He was a central figure in the promotion, establishment, and design of the first Continental Railroad.
Oh, that's an important thing.
He is Pisces. May 4th, Frederick Edwin Church, one of the most famous painters in the United States, was born. He is most notable for landscapes, and he was a Taurus. And July 4th, Stephen Collins Foster, the father of American music, was born.
On the 4th of July.
4th of July. How patriotic. He wrote over 200 songs, including Oh Susanna and Camptown Races.
I love both of those.
He was a Cancer, like me. And then our next one, September 18th, Celia M. Burley. She was a women's rights activist and first woman ordained into the Unitarian ministry. She was a Virgo, like you. And we discussed it last week, Unitarian, that's where it's not the Trinity, it's just the singular. But she was the first woman to ever be ordained into it, which was just cool because women being ordained into ministry at that time just really wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So our deaths in 1826, weirdly enough, July 4th, John Adams, the second president and the first vice president.
John Adams.
And
good luck.
Thomas Jefferson,
yes,
who was our third president and second vice president, both died on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Without knowledge,
yeah, like they just both died.
Didn't Adams say Jefferson survives, or was it Jefferson that said Adams survives? One of them on their deathbed
on their
said
deathbed.
The other one survives, and they became really good friends.
I want to say Adams said Jefferson survives.
I think that's right.
Yeah. But they both died on the same day, July 4th, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Pretty amazing.
And then August 26th, Royal Tyler, which is just a fantastic name.
Really is.
He's a famous playwright known for writing the first American comedy play.
Which was called?
I didn't say. It was very boring. For a comedy play.
First comedy. It was very boring.
So we'll get to September 12th of 1826.
Oh, dear.
A stone worker by the name of William Morgan disappeared from the local jail in Batavia, New York. Many believe it was the work of the Freemasons.
Dun, dun, dun.
We discussed Genesee County, New York back in episode 9 about James McLean, or better known as the man who was hanged twice. And I told you back then, briefly, about a man from the same county who threatened to spill the secrets of the Freemasons and he disappeared. Well, this is that case. Because I said it back then, we're going to cover him. This is him.
Come back.
I'm going to briefly cover the history of Batavia, but I'm not going to cover much of it because this is going to be a wild episode. This is a wild ride.
I like a wild ride. Buckle your seatbelts.
Not only are
Fasten your seatbelts.
Whichever one.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Not only are we going to dig into the disappearance of William Morgan, but we are also going to dive into the history and lore that surrounds the Freemasons.
Intriguing.
I put next in my Jake Peralta voice, chills, literal chills. Because
Cool.
If you've not watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, do yourself a service and go binge all of it this Thanksgiving week. It's one of the best shows ever.
So funny.
The current location of Batavia is located on what the early settlement of Genesee County was. It is located in the farthest west region of New York State in the Genesee Valley and also west of the Niagara River, Lake Erie, and the Pennsylvania line. The official village of Batavia was founded in 1802 by resident and land agent Joseph Ellicott under the authorization of the Holland Land Company. It was named in honor of the Batavian Republic, which was a short-lived government in the Netherlands. All right. Today, the area is part of the Rust Belt, which we mentioned in episode 10 when we talked about the Borscht Belt and the Catskills.
Go to the
The
Catskills.
Rust Belt is a region in the northeastern and midwestern regions of the United States that experienced major industrial decline beginning in 1980. Factories started closing, and the buildings became hollow shells of their once vital existences. Hence, the Rust Belt.
So sad.
Fun fact, the town was used as a filming location in the 1987 film Planes, Trains, and Automobiles starring Steve Martin and Neil Page. So there you go. And that's all we're going to talk about Batavia.
Well, there you go.
William Morgan was born in Culpeper, Virginia in 1774. It could be August 7th, but there's not much proof of that. We don't really know. He was a bricklayer and stonecutter and eventually saved enough to open a store in Richmond, Virginia. He claimed to be
And if y'all could see the look on her face when she said claimed and how she cut her eyes to me.
claimed to be a captain in the War of 1812. And while there were few who corroborated this story, people were still skeptical of its validity. In October of 1819, at the age of 45, William settled down and got married to 19-year-old Lucinda Pendleton in Richmond.
Oh, he could have been her daddy.
He was 45, she was 19. They went on to have 2 children named Lucinda Wesley Morgan and Thomas Jefferson Morgan. The family moved to York, Upper Canada, and William operated a brewery for a little bit. But when the brewery was destroyed in a fire, the family fell into poverty quickly and they moved to Batavia, New York. William went back to what he knew and became a stoneworker again. And from everything I read about William Morgan, it was pretty much agreed across the board that he wasn't really much of anyone. He was described in all sources as a drunk, a drifter,
Oh.
a gambler. And according to one source, he, quote, had moved his family relentlessly through the countryside, hauling his wife Lucinda and 2 children from one failed venture to the next.
Sounds like a winner.
I just put, ouch. At this time, debtors' prisons were still alive and well in some areas, and William found himself in them more times than he found himself out of them. Local Masonic lodges were to thank for getting William bailed out more than once, but it's unknown whether he was actually a Mason or not. He claimed to be a master Mason when he lived in Canada, and he attended a few meetings once he reached New York. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly are the Freemasons?
Ask Ben Gates. He knows.
Well,
Riley kind of knows.
I could do an entire podcast, like a whole show just on Freemasonry alone, but we're going to dive into this rabbit hole for just a bit. According to Britannica, Freemasonry are the teachings and practices of the fraternal, so men only, order of free and accepted Masons, the largest worldwide secret society, an oath-bound society often devoted to fellowship, moral discipline, and mutual assistance that conceals at least some of its rituals, customs, or activities from the public. While it's called a secret society, the society itself can be known and their existence acknowledged, and the practices and beliefs can remain a secret. Traditionally, the group's origin can be traced back to local groups of stonemasons that regulated the qualifications of stone masonry and their interaction with authorities and clients. Today, the group can be split into 2 factions. First is regular Freemasonry, who insist that the practices be open in a working lodge, that every member profess belief in a supreme being, that no woman shall be admitted, and that the discussion of religion and politics be banned. Second is continental Freemasonry, This is also called liberal Freemasonry, Latin Freemasonry, and agdematic Freemasonry, which have the same general beliefs, but some or all of the rules are removed, depending on which branch you were at. The status of a Freemason is identified by his degree, which represents the steps taken from lower ranks to the highest degree of Freemason knowledge. There are many different types of degree systems around the world, and it depends on the chapter as to what they are. However, there are 3 degrees that are standard among the Freemasons. The concept and names of each degree were adapted from Middle Age crafting guilds. The first degree is an entered apprentice, which is essentially the introduction to the Masonic order. At this level, the candidates learn about rituals, symbolism, and beliefs in Masonry. They learn the language of Freemasonry, what topics cannot be discussed in the lodge, and the actual responsibilities of the lodge to the community and world around them. This degree is meant to represent youthfulness in a time of learning. The next degree is the fellow craft. At this level, the member is exposed to more advanced understanding in philosophy, intellectual enlightenment, and wisdom. This level is to represent the member reaching manhood. The third degree is the Master Mason, which is to represent maturity and having advanced wisdom and knowledge. The Master Masons are taught about virtue and morality, along with the duties and tools of a Master Mason. This step usually takes several years to complete. And at that point, he receives all of the rights and privileges available to him as a Master Mason. Now, I found an article on history.com titled 7 Things You May Not Know About Freemasons. And what do you know? We're going to go into all of them.
Shocker.
They are as follows. Number 1, the Freemasons are the oldest fraternal organization in the world, with its beginning going all the way back to the Middle Ages in Europe. Number 2, Freemason symbols aren't what you think. Freemasons have long communicated using visual symbols, some of those being the all-seeing eye, and the most recognizable being the square and compass, which is a builder's square joined by a compass itself. Number 3, yes, there is a Freemason handshake, several of them actually. There is a handshake that goes along with each degree, and each lodge has its own specific handshake as well. Because why not?
Well, my sorority had a handshake. I mean, it makes sense.
Number 4, the Catholic Church forbids members from being Freemasons or marrying Freemasons. The Catholic Church first condemned Freemasonry in 1738. This was prompted by concern over Masonic temples and the secret rituals performed there. In the 19th century, the Vatican even called the Masons, quote, the synagogue of Satan. It's very strong, very strong words coming from the Catholic Church. Number 5, Freemasons inspired America's first political third party. In 1828, the Anti-Masonic Party was formed in response to fears that the group was growing too secretive and powerful. Some leaders claimed that an infamous disappearance of the time had occurred at the hands of the Masons. Hint, it's this one. Number 6, it's still a boys' club, mostly.
Yes.
The original guidebook to the Freemasons stated that neither a woman nor an atheist could be a member, but there is a quote which said, Masons can come from all walks of life, provided they can afford to pay the annual subscription, which is not expensive. I looked it up. It's like $300 a year.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my pop was a Mason.
He might have been. There's different ones.
Yeah. I mean, there was one like
my grandfather was an elk.
It wasn't elk.
Yeah.
It was a Mason.
There's
Daddy has his Bible.
Yeah, there's a few different. So you can have a Masonic lodge and not be a Freemason.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's all kinds of levels and such, but I mean,
I got too deep into the rabbit hole. My grandfather was an elk. That was a rabbit hole I did not need to get into. Anyway. 7. famous Freemasons are everywhere.
Mm.
There are many famous Freemasons, including George Washington, who was a Master Mason, and Benjamin Franklin, who was the founding member of the first Masonic Lodge in America. Other Masons include President Franklin D. Roosevelt, President Gerald Ford, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, adventurer Davy Crockett, jazz musician Duke Ellington, singer Nat King Cole, automotive mogul Henry Ford, actor John Wayne, and astronaut Buzz Aldrin.
Cool.
And that's probably as far as we'll go with the Freemasons for now. There's a lot more that we could cover. Some of it's going to come out in this case as to what we discuss more about the Freemasons. We might also cover Skull and Bones eventually. I feel a little bit scared to cover Skull and Bones because they're still alive and well. As my boyfriend was telling me the other night when I brought it up, there were two, and I don't remember which ones. I'm not going to say, but there were two during a presidential election. Both of the nominees running for each party were both in Skull and Bones and both in it at the same exact time. It was very weird. So we'll probably cover them eventually. I don't want the Clintons to come after me. So
Yeah, no, let's skip that.
We'll see. It could be good. Who knows? Freedom of speech. Anyways, as I said before, William Morgan claimed that he had been made a Master Mason while living in Canada. As you can see from what we discussed, even from the lower levels of Freemasonry to a Master Mason, it seems takes like 10 years.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It takes a minute.
Whatever. So in 1825, he was awarded the Royal Archmason, which is outside of the 3 degrees discussed earlier because this is a rare one that most people do not make it to. And these are some of the most secret degrees that people can hold.
I feel like he should get like I see King George from Hamilton.
So the Royal Archmason is said to be the most beautiful degree in all of Freemasonry.
I'm right. He's King George.
No.
Well, that's like,
no.
just flashy.
No.
Let
Mason,
me have this.
They have the whole point of Freemasonry is you have to be secretive. You can't be like King George, who is bougie.
But within the thing.
No, because even in the thing, it's supposed you're to be this high to a Royal Archmason. They're not supposed to know. It's very weird. Anyways, Masons who reach this level can go straight to the Knights Templar.
Ooh.
Yes. So Morgan received this degree at Leroy's Western Star Chapter number 33 in Genesee County, New York, after declaring under oath that he had obtained the previous 6 degrees to get there. So if 1 through 3 roughly takes 10 years from what I saw, you did 6. So you can go up and above Master Masonry, but a lot of people don't because you have to devote like all of your time to do it. So
Which
a lot
explains why he went into debt. I mean, because he was spending all his time. There you go.
Well, no, he was drunk and he was a gambler. That was why he was losing all of their money.
I was trying to make it.
No, you'll find out. No,
I tried.
You don't need to make excuses for him.
You know me, I'm Pollyanna.
He's
which apparently our younger listeners have no idea what that means.
So I want to make it pretty clear that Morgan didn't claim to join the Freemasons so that he could simply be in the organization. He joined the Freemasons to gain access to the secret ceremonies and rituals of the Masons, and then he wanted to expose them.
Oh.
Morgan had a friend named David C. Miller, who was a local newspaper publisher who was struggling to keep his paper going. Being, of course, the charitable man that Morgan was, he would gather the information he needed from the Freemasons, and then he would help his friend Miller out by using his printing operation to publish the book. See, told you. In 1826, Morgan publicly threatened to expose the secrets and made his plans to publish the book known. This caused a, quote, excited great commotion among the members of the group,
I would imagine.
and something had to be done about it. The members in and around Batavia, New York were especially irate because they had allowed Morgan into their group and, quote, consultations were had among them respecting the means which should be adopted to prevent the publication of the contemplated work. The original plan was to simply convince Morgan to not publish a book and just forget about it. But that didn't work. Then the group tried to give him advice in the hopes of changing his mind. I can only imagine what that advice was. That did not work. It seemed Morgan was more concerned about the idea of possible fame and fortune for the book than, let's say, his life. I'm sure at the time Morgan didn't understand the gravity of the situation, but he soon would. Then, quote, arrangements were made for the assembling at Batavia. On the night of the 8th of September, of members of the fraternity from different and distant places. It is distinctively proved that a party of 15 or 20 persons from Buffalo and its vicinity assembled at a tavern about 4 miles west of Batavia. In the afternoon and evening of that day, they remained there until 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, when they went toward Batavia. At the time, a party came to Batavia from Lockport and its vicinity. It is in proof that this early party was composed of persons, some of whom had been selected for the express purpose to assist in measures to suppress the book and to separate William Morgan from the individual who was printing it voluntarily, if possible, forcibly, if necessary.
Ooh.
It was not just the suppression of the book that was a concern of the Freemasons. Morgan had, quote, borrowed. We'll say borrowed. Some say stole. Some didn't say.
So air quotes on borrowed.
Yes. A shirt and cravat, like a neck scarf,
Yes.
for those who don't know, from Ebenezer C. Kingsley. Kingsley filed a charge on September 10th of 1826 claiming that Morgan had taken away those items. Kingsley's allegation resulted in a warrant being issued for Morgan. Then Morgan was arrested in Batavia, put on a stagecoach, and then he was taken to Canandaigua, about 50 miles east of Batavia. Well, Morgan did go before a judge, and the charges against him were dismissed. Weird. Then another warrant was issued by Nicholas G. Chesborough against Morgan for a debt of $2, which is,
That is a huge debt,
well, it's around $56. So,
but still.
which was part of a tavern bill. This time, the judge did issue a judgment against Morgan for $2.69, and he was sent back to the jail in Canandaigua. And this all took place September 11th of 1826. The next night, on September 12th, according to the jailer's wife, her husband was not present at the jail, and she was watching over the prisoners for the night. Lawton Lawson was a local Mason. He came to the jail and asked if William Morgan was there. She told him that he was, and Lawson said that he wanted to pay William's debt completely and take him away. The jailer's wife came up with an excuse that she couldn't let him go or didn't have really the authority to let him go. Lawson seemed okay with that and asked if he could talk to Morgan for a bit, and she took him to the cell. Lawson told Morgan that he would pay his debt if he left with him, and Morgan agreed. Lawson again tried to give the money to the jailer's wife, and she again wouldn't take it. Something didn't feel quite right to her. Lawson left angry and went to find the jailer himself. Well, he couldn't find him. So Lawson came back with another man who said his name was Foster, but it really wasn't. His name was John Sheldon.
Interesting.
Lawson again tried to give the jailer's wife money and even wanted to give her more than what Morgan owed.
Oh, well, that's not suspicious at all.
She again refused, and the two men left the jail.
I mean, you know, not suspicious at all to try to offer more money to get this guy out. Uh, dummy.
Lawson returned twice more with different men.
Oh my gosh.
One of those being Edward Sawyer, demanding that she let Morgan go, and each time she refused. So Homeboy's been back about 6 times at this point.
Yeah, so,
Well,
suspicious.
Lawson went and got Nicholas Chesborough. He's the one who initially filed the complaint against Morgan to put him in jail. And the men returned again to the jail.
But they didn't kill her husband.
No, they
Okay.
couldn't find him at the moment.
Well, I mean, I didn't know if they, quote, couldn't find
No, they
him,
couldn't.
and they just didn't want to kill the
I
woman.
think he was out of town, and that's why she was watching the jail.
Okay.
I think he had to go out of town to get another prisoner, from what I could see.
Okay. I mean, I didn't know they just
Yeah.
wanted to spare the woman's life, but I mean,
No.
they were getting desperate.
Chesborough told the jailer's wife again that they were anxious to get Morgan out of jail, presumably back to his family. She finally agreed. She got the keys and freed Morgan from his cell. She said the men left in, quote, a friendly manner, but, quote, before she could get the door on Morgan's room unlocked, she heard the cry of murder and she ran out the front door. According to the Middlebury Free Press, she saw the following. Quote, Lawson, Morgan, and Sheldon were on the side, a short distance from the steps of the jail, going to the east. Morgan was in the middle and evidently struggling to get free. His hat was off and he was struggling to get away. The other two had hold of him by his arms and to all appearance were dragging him along. While they were passing on the east side, she heard a rap on the curb of the well and about the same time heard the cry of murder once or twice. A search party was formed and they tried to find William Morgan, but he couldn't be found anywhere. Soon everyone was talking about Morgan. There was such a panic in Batavia that, quote, public meetings were called, inquiries instituted, and measures adopted to ascertain the actors in the scene of the apparent and deep iniquity. So fancy.
I was going to say, that was a fun word.
Local authorities charged 4 men with, quote, conspiracy to seize and carry William Morgan from the jail in Canandaigua.
So did the jailer's wife get in trouble?
She'll come back.
Okay. I was just curious because bless her heart, she tried.
So let's see. The men arrested were Lawson, Sheldon, Sawyer, and Chesborough. The buzz around the trial was immense. And according to the Fayetteville Weekly Observer, quote, the taverns are crowded to excess with counsel, witness, and those whom curiosity has drawn hither. A number of persons whose presence is necessary to dispatch of business yet haven't arrived. But unless they obtain accommodation in private families, they are not likely to be very pleasantly situated. From the hotel where this is written, about 70 applicants were turned away since Sunday, the house being crowded to overflowing. Hence, you may guess what a host of sojourners that the business of the court has attracted. So many people were in town. They had already booked out the local hotel.
Yeah.
There were 70 people on the waiting list.
Goodness.
People were begging to stay in families' houses. And when they weren't allowed there, they were just going to the bar and drinking.
Crazy. Crazy.
The trial began, and there were a slew of witnesses brought to the stand. William Morgan's wife was the first to take the stand. She stated that she hadn't seen her husband after he was admitted to the jail. Richard Wells was a local who was out the night that Morgan was taken from the jail. He heard someone cry for help twice, but when he reached the jail, it was quiet. Richard Wells then saw Chesborough and asked if he had heard the same. Chesborough said that a man had been released, but there was some reason to arrest him again, and that was why he heard the cries.
So go away, nothing to see here, nothing to see here.
Mm-hmm. Willis Turner was called to the stand and stated that he had seen several men carrying a man who was struggling to get away. Turner heard
What
the
you
man
talk about, Willis?
Turner heard the man cry murder 3 times, and that a scuffle occurred between the men, which caused Morgan's hat to fall off. much like the jailer's wife said.
That would have been a good time to use the word kerfuffle.
The witness then said he saw Chesborough stuff a handkerchief into Morgan's mouth. And when a carriage stopped near the group of men, Morgan was forced into the carriage and the carriage left.
Oh, which is why no more cries. Everything was quiet because they got him the heck out of Dodge.
Hiram Hubbard. He was a local Mason and the driver of said carriage. He claimed that he was only asked to arrive and take a group of men to Rochester. He said when he arrived, 5 men got into the carriage and they asked to be let out near the woods. But he said he never saw anything conspicuous and didn't think there would be any reason to worry. The trial didn't produce any answers. The theory that everyone goes with most often is that William Morgan was taken to a boat to the middle of Niagara River, thrown overboard, and presumably drowned, and he was never seen again.
So he wasn't in a barrel.
There's a second story. No. That Morgan was paid off in exchange for not publishing the book, and then he just disappeared into thin air.
Take the money
and
go find somewhere else to be.
Right. Well, the Fayette Observer noted, quote, "The trial of the Masons for the abduction of Morgan is progressing. The fate of Morgan is yet a matter of profound and deeply interesting mystery. The better opinion is that he was delivered into the hands of a party of traders near Niagara in Canada, and by them carried to the Northwest. Yet serious fears are entertained that he has been murdered." Well,
I mean, it could have happened.
And this plan to get rid of Morgan didn't go as planned. I think the idea was that if they get rid of Morgan, then all their problems would just be solved.
Sure.
They just had to get rid of Morgan quietly. Instead, they were too persistent in getting Morgan out of jail and drew too much attention to themselves.
You think?
The Freemasons took a hard blow after this. Because of this trial, a lot of uproar in the community occurred. Some people quit Freemasonry when they realized what could happen to them if they also didn't comply. This resulted in 2,000 lodges closing. And it also allowed a man named Thurlow Weed, who was a New York newspaper publisher and politician at the time, to harbor disdain for the organization.
I mean, I can kind of see that.
The event of William Morgan's disappearance single-handedly created an entire political party, the anti-Masonic Party.
I mean, you gonna kill somebody because they're gonna tell you secrets? I mean...
Yep. While all of this was going on outside of the courtroom, inside, the jury was deliberating on the fate of the 4 men. The men were found guilty of their crimes, but their punishments were less agreeable with those in the courtroom. Lawson was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Chesborough to 1 year in prison. Sheldon to 3 months. And then Edward Sawyer to 1 month in prison. These sentences caused an outrage, and there was still zero evidence of what happened to Morgan. And on April 15th, 1828, the New York governor passed an act that allowed him to establish a special counsel to investigate the abduction. Now, the reason that their sentences were not that long is because this was still at a time where no body, no proof.
Yeah.
Now, today, you can take someone to court if you cannot find a body, if there is enough evidence to back up that it occurred.
But there are more ways to have evidence now than there were then as well. There's DNA evidence and, more scientific evidence now.
So they could only really get them for abduction.
Yeah.
They couldn't really get them for murder. So, after Morgan disappeared, his friend, who was the publisher that he was friends with, actually did publish the book which told the secrets of Freemasonry.
So all of their shenanigans
did nothing. It immediately became a bestseller.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring that up as soon as you said, that they were just trying to get rid of him quietly. I was like, but didn't his friend already have all the stuff? Yeah.
Some people claimed to have seen William Morgan in other countries, but it was never confirmed.
Mm.
In October of 1827, a body washed up on the shore of Lake Ontario. People claimed it was William Morgan, and the body was actually buried as William Morgan.
Mm.
But
However,
there was a man named Timothy Monroe from Canada that was missing at the same time. And his wife identified the clothing on the body as belonging to her husband, not William Morgan. So people were still outraged by the disappearance and demanded answers. In 1848, Henry Valance, who was a Mason, allegedly made a deathbed confession that he murdered Morgan. A lot of people started to believe this story, but a grave was discovered in 1881 about 10 miles away from Batavia, which is very convenient since the bones were found right at the time that efforts were being put forward to build a monument in memory of Morgan. Many people, said finding the grave was staged to generate publicity around the new monument. On September 13th, 1882, a William Morgan monument was revealed by the National Christian Association, who opposed secret societies. The inscription read, quote, "Sacred to the memory of William Morgan, a native of Virginia, a captain in the War of 1812, maybe, a respectable, maybe, citizen of Batavia,
Your sarcasm.
and a martyr, maybe, to the freedom of writing, printing and speaking the truth. He was abducted from near this spot in the year 1826.
To all those things.
In the year of 1826 by Freemasons and murdered for revealing the secrets of their order. The records of Genesee County and the files of the Batavia Advocate kept in the recorder's office contain the history of the events that caused the erection of this monument. And that is the disappearance of William Morgan.
Oh, no. That's no good. So we still have no for sure answers. We just know he gone.
He gone. Nobody has any answers. Nobody knows where he went. One body was buried as him, but it wasn't him. Then they mysteriously found these bones very oddly right around the time they were building a monument for him.
Random sightings across the ocean.
People were seeing him everywhere. Then people thought he had drowned. Then people thought he ran away. No one knows what happened to William Morgan.
Deathbed confessions.
Deathbed confession. And no one believed the deathbed confession because he was kind of one of the Freemasons that was left that was kind of involved in that time. Not necessarily in the kidnapping of
but
William
just
Morgan.
Involved in the Masons.
Right, in that area.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people thought that he was possibly one of like the last remaining ones from that time. And so he just decided he would confess to it to try and just like close out the chapter and
okay,
get
so
people to
here's
move on.
my thing. I mean, no, kidnapping / killing. Look, killing is bad. Killing is wrong. I've said this. I need a shirt that says "killing is bad." I mean, that's my line. How stupid of them to go back to the wife to the jail like that many times. I mean, she says no. Okay, so I mean, just be chill.
Yeah, no, that wasn't them.
I mean, you know what I mean?
And I don't know if
I'm not that stupid.
I mean, I don't know if they were coming back as much as they did because they thought that the book was going to be published soon. Like if they knew that he had it.
Like there was a deadline or maybe thought that he hadn't given it to his printer friend yet.
I'm not sure because, I mean,
going back that many times is highly suspicious.
Well, and I think
it's just stupid.
I think too, because they offered to pay her more, they thought she wouldn't say anything about them being there.
But
so I don't know.
I mean, I understand that, but if I'm sorry, that's just stupid. I mean, because I'm the goody. I'm like, I said no. I said what I said.
Yeah,
like get out.
Well, and two, she
And probably she agreed to it eventually just because she was tired of him. Like, just get out of my jail and leave me alone. I'm trying to sleep
well,
tonight.
and I think a big part of it though too with her is that her husband was not there. She was only watching over the jail for the night. You have a group of men who keep coming
Yeah.
back. You're eventually going to be like, they're going to kill me if I don't let this guy go.
I mean, right? Like, leave me alone.
Like,
I'm
I'll take your
tired of
money,
dealing with
take
you.
him.
Right. Like, next time you might come back and it might not be money in your hand. I mean, I
Mhm.
get that too. But I mean, come on, just be nice.
No.
I mean,
it's not what this show's about.
I know that's not what this show's about. I
So,
know.
yeah. So nobody knows what happened to William Morgan, but his death started an entire political party and single-handedly knocked the
His disappearance, because they could have given him money and
He's
he
got to
could
be
have.
dead by now.
Well, this is true, but he wasn't dead right then. Possibly he could
Possibly.
possibly have still been alive. So his
But
disappearance.
he
I'm holding out hope.
so his
Eternal optimist right
his,
here.
His disappearance created an entire political party
True.
and single-handedly knocked the Freemasons back by like 100 years.
I mean, a guy who was a
closed
gambler and a
drunk
drunkard
and a liar.
and really not a great family man
Mm-hmm.
and a snitch. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, we all know what snitches get.
Liar. I mean,
and he ended up being the reason for the formation of an entire political party.
Yep.
I mean that,
but I don't think it had anything to do with him specifically.
no.
I believe at this point in time, so many people were already harboring resentment for the Freemasons.
It was just the catalyst.
That it was an excuse to push everything forward.
The proverbial straw.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we don't know what happened to William Morgan. He might have lived. He might have been killed. He might have ran. Who knows? We're not real sure. But we have a website that you can easily find that's not disappearing. Or you can find any and all ONUC information you could be possibly looking for. It's onenationundercrime.com. We are One Nation Under Crime on Facebook and Instagram, and at ONUC Pod on Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube if you just search for One Nation Under Crime. If you love our podcast as much as we do, please follow us and recommend us to your friends, family, coworkers, strangers on the street. You're going to Thanksgiving with all of your family. Just grab all of their phones, subscribe to our podcast on all of them. They don't even have to know. And then just go on about your day. It can be your own little secret thing that you have going on. It could be a fun time. Who knows? But
a fun time.
It could be a fun time. Also, while you're in their phones, go ahead and go to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review. Just look, it's something to pass the time when your family's there.
You go.
So just another trick for you to do. We have a Patreon. If you would like to help with the cost of making and hosting the show, we appreciate you guys listening to this week's episode of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here, same time,
different crime,
next week. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all, especially if you decide you're going to expose the secrets of the Freemasons. Goodbye.
Watch your back.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.